In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use the quadratic formula. You have used it in other subjects. I see you probably touched on it a little bit in geometry, but you should have learned it in Algebra 1. Here's the formula. You're going to have to memorize the formula. The easiest way to remember this formula is to the children's rhyme of Pop Goes the Weasel. And it goes like this. X equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You need to sing it over and over again because you're going to have to memorize it. And using this quadratic formula, you're going to have a quadratic equation right here, and it's going to be in decreasing power set equal to 0. And looking at this equation, you have ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Here's where you get your a, your b, and your c that goes right here in your quadratic equation. So I want us to set it up very structurally. We're going to find a, b, c, and d. And d is what's called a discriminant. And then we're going to find x, and we're going to determine what type of roots it is. And each of the answers are going to have different types of roots. In this case, it's going to be 2 real rational roots. So here's how we're going to set it up. We have our equation, 2x squared minus 9x plus 9. We're going to come over to the side, and we're going to say, okay, let's identify everything. A is 2. It's the coefficient of x squared. B is negative 9. It's the coefficient of x. C is my constant. In this case, it is 9. Then I'm going to look for D, which is called the discriminant, and then x, which I'm solving for in my variable. So my discriminant is exactly what's underneath that radical sign without the radical. The discriminant is simply b squared minus 4ac, and that's what we're about to find. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, okay, D, my discriminant, is equal to b squared. B is negative 9, so this is negative 9 squared minus 4 times A is 2, times C, and C is 9. So what I want to do is find that discriminant. So I'm just going to type that in the calculator, b squared minus 4ac. And I get 9. This is 81 minus 4 times 2 times 9, and the discriminant is 9. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to identify that that's 9. Now I'm going to plug all of this into my formula. And I've done part of the work. This b squared minus 4ac is what goes right here underneath that square root sign. So we have x equals the opposite of b. So the opposite of negative 9 is positive 9. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, which I found to be 9, all over 2 times a, and a is 2. So it's x equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then you figure it out. So here I have 9 plus or minus. I know the square root of 9 is 3 all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So I plug that in and I simplify it. Now this plus and minus tells us that we have two directions to go. I'm going to add the 3 and I'm going to subtract the 3. So in this first we have 9 plus 3 over 4. And in the second I have 9 minus 3 over 4. Then when I'm figuring these out, if you type them in your calculator, you have to be very careful that you make sure that your calculator knows this whole thing is the numerator. So this is 12 divided by 4, which is 3. 9 minus 3, tell your calculator that's all together, is 6 divided by 4, and that reduces to 3 over 2. So my final answer for x is 3/2, 3. So I have found all of that for number 1. It's a little busy. As structured as you can keep it, you really need to work to keep it structured. Let's look at number 2. Oh, I need to go back. I'm sorry. In this particular problem, I come out with this answer right here. 3/2, 3. I need to talk about just a little bit this 2 real rational roots. You're going to have 4 types of roots, and I'm going to go through each one. There are 2 because you had a plus and minus. So here's my 2 answers, 3/2 and 3. I'm going to get 2 answers right here. They're real. That means they're not imaginary. We'll look at an imaginary root. They're real, and they're rational. In other words, I can put that in a calculator, and it's going to give me an ending decimal, or it's already a whole number. Irrational are when you have a square root left over. So these are 2 real, and they're rational. And when you see irrational, I think it'll be easier to understand. These are rational because I can come up with a decimal for them, and they're the roots or the answers to the equation. In number 2, we're going to look at an equation having 2 real irrational roots. Again, we have our quadratic formula. X equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You've got to memorize it. So here we're looking for a, b, c, the discriminant, and the answer. So I'm looking here, fortunately it's already set equal to 0 and decreasing power. So here's A, here's B, and here's C. A is 3, B is 4, C is -5, and I want to find the discriminant. The discriminant is B squared minus 4AC. I'm going to scoot it over well, that'll work. So here I'm going to find it. The discriminant is B squared, 4 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 3, times C, which is -5. And you're going to just type that in your calculator, and you're going to find out what that is. I got 76. All right, so here I have 76. So now I'm going to plug it into let me write this down, 76. I'm going to plug it into my formula, and I'm going to see if I can find x. So we have x equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and a is 3. So here I have -4 plus or minus the square root of 76 all over 2 times 3, which is 6. Now I have this square root right here, and I have to be careful there because I need to see if it's going to break down. So that question goes back to your radicals. What is a factor of 76 that is a perfect square? It does have one. It's 4 times 19. 4 times 19. I know the square root of 4. It's 2. So I'm going to have to come down. X equals -4 plus or minus 2 square roots of 19 all over 6. Now what I'm hoping that you still see is that you have a common factor. If you go back and remember, I can find common factors of all the numbers on the outside. I just can't go up underneath the radical. So I can see a common factor of 2. 2 will go into 4 twice, 2 will go into 2 once, and 2 will go into 6 3 times. So when I come over here and write my final answer, I have -2 plus or minus the square root of 19 all divided by 3. So this is my answer right here. Now notice that there are 2 answers because I have 1 plus and 1 minus, 1 plus and 1 minus. So there's 2. They're real because it's not imaginary, but they're irrational because I have the square root of 19. Sometimes on some tests they'll ask you for the decimal value. I won't. I like this exact value. This is an exact value. If you were to find, just to give you one illustration of this, if you were to find the decimal value, you would say -2 plus the square root of 19, and you would divide that by 3. And then you would say -2 minus the square root of 19, and divide that by 3, and you would get the decimal value there. I will always be looking for this value here because I want the exact value. But it has 2 answers here. They're real, and they're irrational because of that square root of 19. But these are the answers really that you're using and you're looking for.